Welcome to the Flower Prophecies, a podcast exploring all things flower essences and remedies and flower therapy, and how this vibrational plant medicine has the potential to heal and shift our individual and collective health and consciousness. We'll be diving deep into the specifics of individual essences, nature's energetics, emotional healing and growth, as well as hearing client case studies, hosting special guests and professionals, and I'll be sharing my own personal explorations and philosophies channeled straight from the flowers. Through my own unearthing, I have discovered what I believe to be the most profound teaching of the flowers, and I now wish to share with you the practice of alchemizing fear into beauty. Okay, welcome back to the Flower Prophecies. We have returning guest today on this episode, Samantha Boersma. She is an intuitive, a flower essence fairy herself. She does many things, and if you haven't listened, I think it is episode 20, we had a beautiful conversation. It's a bit of a long one, but it's so worth it. One of my favorite conversations. And yeah, we've got her back today to chat again. We actually have no agenda today on what we're going to flow into. So I think it's going to be, a real fun, exciting conversation. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks for having me back. I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, it's always quite full and vibrant when we will get together and chat. So I have no doubts.
Absolutely. We've had a few chats since our last conversation, and there's always a lot to explore. So in saying that, let's just flow. Let's get into it. So how are you, and where are you at this time in your life, in what's going on in, it's the end of summer there? What's happening for you?
I am really great. I've had a full summer, and I'm currently working with some material for an upcoming 3-day journey that I'll be leading, which I think might end up informing some of the things we talk about today, just because it's been what's been on my mind and on my heart. And, it's just some stuff that came through to me during some meditation practices and visioning around rewriting our own origin stories to bring forth stories that can better support us in coming together as a collective, instead of, implanting ideas of shame within us, as I feel like so many of us carry from some of the origin stories that we grew up with. And so something that's been coming up with me for this process for me has been working with some specific flowers. And one of them that has come through really strongly has been Lady Slipper. Have you ever worked with Lady Slipper?
I haven't worked with Lady Slipper myself. Can you share a little bit about her?
Yeah. So, the Lady Slipper flower, I wish we could put a picture in here, and maybe you can for like the YouTube version or something, but it is so interesting to look at. It's in the orchid family. And when you look at it, it almost looks like a scrotum. But if you look closely at the back of the flower, there's this opening, and it looks like a vulva.
Love it.
So it has this really interesting visual display of both the masculine and the feminine. And this is so cool because its energy can help us integrate the two within ourselves. And I think orchids in general, and maybe you have an opinion on this, but tend to help us in these kind of areas. A lot of times things having to do with sexuality. And something really cool about Lady Slipper, because it has this beautiful color and this beautiful scent, and it attracts bees, and they go into the little hole at the back of the flower and realize that there's no pollen in there. And so they have to come back out this little opening. And when they do, they leave pollen that they've collected that's all over them within the lady slipper flower. And so there's this really interesting exchange that happens between the pollinators and this beautiful plant.
That's so interesting. Wow. Yeah, I feel like definitely the orchids, like I feel that too. And I feel like a lot of them have those resemblances as well, like the whole family, basically, you know. I'd love for you to touch a little bit more on, I guess, this integration of the masculine and feminine within working with the lady slipper and how that's kind of unfolding and unearthing for you.
Well, it, of course, is so potent to what I've been working with in my own life, as it always tends to be. But when I think back of that image of the bee and the flower, you know, there's this very potent picture of giving and receiving that is demonstrated there. And I think that's a lot of what has been coming up in my own life. I was lucky enough to be able to bring my flower essences to Mama Medicine's Element Retreat this summer in Italy. And right before the retreat, I had channeled this blend called the Divine Father, and it was about working with the Divine Masculine. And I have to say, this was the first time I really, truly felt open to working with the Divine Masculine. I felt a lot of resistance to it and a lot of just struggle with the masculine in general. And then I went to this retreat, and the theme of the retreat ended up being the father and the divine masculine, of course.
Of course.
And during this retreat time, I was sharing my essences with this big group, and it was my birthday while I was there. And I was just receiving just outpourings of love. I was receiving so much. And it was a really potent example of how actually healing the divine masculine within ourselves has so much to do with being able to receive more. And that was something that was really, really, really challenging for me. You know, I had 50 beautiful heart-centered women singing happy birthday to me, looking in my eyes, sending me these beautiful wishes. And I wanted to crawl out of my skin, honestly. I knew how beautiful it was. And I feel like I was going to have the most blessed year, but receiving can be so challenging, you know? And so this is kind of this little microcosm of how it's been showing up in my life. And, you know, I think Lady Slipper is really here to help create that balance and a little bit more ease with both the giving and the receiving.
I'm just just frothing over here, because over the last year or so, I've been receiving, but I have been integrating this same message of this, the balance between the masculine and feminine, and you know, this I guess theory that the masculine's power really lies within his heart, and the wound there is that it's closed off to receiving. And for you know, collectively and individually, you know, I think to heal the masculine, as you say, what it really needs is to be able to open up and receive. I'm just I've been working with that same energy these past few months, and the message is so strong there, you know, this element of receiving. And I think I know that, you know, we kind of correlate the feminine a lot with the heart, but I think the masculine gets missed in this realm of that is their power as well, and you know, we're so closed off, or the masculine is so closed off in that realm. They're so wounded there. And if that was to open up and this interchange of giving and receiving to unfold and be free flowing, I think so much would change for everyone, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's such a great way of pointing to the way that our current systems, our current reality, the cultural ways that we interact with one another harm us all. It's not that just women are harmed by operating in the world this way. It's like, that's a real loss for men not to have that openness to emotional connection. And not that obviously we're not, talking about everyone here, but just a tendency based on how we're conditioned. Right. I've really been kind of witnessing this beautiful divine masculine energy in a partner recently as well. It's just, that's what opened me up to being willing to working with this energy, because that was so healing to witness. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I think exactly what you're saying, like this could be so healing for people on a collective level to witness this shift and the beauty that is within the heart of a balanced masculine.
Absolutely. And like, I love that. I've been watching you share little snippets of you and your partner, and you just look like you are receiving so much fun and joy and love from that. So that's really beautiful to witness, what I have. Yeah, I think if we can guide the masculine and the masculine within all of us to begin to just open a little bit more, the change would be like, I feel like we're putting our energy and our focus in the wrong places, in places that are not going to create this shift. Because ultimately, as corny as it sounds, what we need is love, right? But as long as the masculine, and I'm talking about the masculine within us all, is closed off to that, nothing's going to shift.
Yeah. And I think the union of the two within ourselves is also what opens us up to that love, and that's what I think. Like, I think a little bit about the Kundalini energy of like the weaving together of the two. That's what allows us to rise into our true center of power, which is our heart. Like, you're truly empowered when you're living from your heart space and you're making decisions from what your heart is telling you. That's true power, in my opinion, at least. Not everyone has to agree with that, but and I feel like we're collectively at a place where we're ready to find a little bit more balance with that, not look so much in one direction or the other. And, in all reality too, they are just one and the same. At the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, totally. And I agree. Like, it is this like connection between the two. And, I love something that's been coming through for me actually though, is like the notion of yes, living from the heart is like where we like thrive from. But I do actually see it as like living from the heart and living from the sacral, like the womb. Because as you say, one without the other, like is there's nothing there. Like, it's not going to happen. So it's like, I actually see it as like acting from both of them. It's like this receiving in the heart and like finding the love in the heart. But then it's also like kind of drawing on the creativity and the wisdom from the womb, from the sacral. And like, I feel like it's almost like a one informs the other, and we have to have them synced. We have to have them integrated to be able to then like expand that love, like you say. So it's almost like, well, we see it as like acting from the heart. It is like a connection of both of them that we're acting from. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. And as you're speaking, I'm getting this vision of the heartbeat, boom, 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 boom. It's consistent, it's steady, it's predictable. And then the beat of the womb, which, there's not a beat, but it moves in this cyclical nature, right? Like we shed the lining every month, we move in this spiral-like nature. And that just is so cool to me. It feels like a very strong representation of the masculine and the feminine. I don't know if that's like a stretch, but that's just what I'm seeing as you're talking.
I can see it. I can see it. Absolutely. And that's it, right? It's almost like one needs to recognize that the other is a part of it as well. Like we have to acknowledge the other part of it. And I think, for the masculine, it is like giving and receiving love. But then for the feminine, so like the sacral, it is like this trust and surrender to the masculine, right? To the heart. And like at the moment, it feels unsafe to do that in the collective, right? But if synchronistically, like if together, if we can work together, the masculine and the feminine, to give and receive the love and to trust and surrender to that love, like that's when shifts will happen. That's when change is going to happen, and it's almost like we're like within self, but collectively as well, we're like at this point where it's kind of like, well, who's going to take that first step,
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels so important to, I don't know. I just feel this like little shift of needing to move past the frustration or the resentment or the misunderstanding or the anger at that polarity.
Yes.
And just coming and like actually blurring the lines can do us some good, coming into a place of just more flow between the two. And that even is true between the nuances within each one. I'm thinking about this work that I have upcoming, and there's two archetypes, and one represents this very specific part of the feminine, and the other represents this other part of the feminine, and they're portrayed in very like polarizing ways. And I actually think what's being asked for right now is just to neutralize them a little bit. Like things don't always have to be so, we got to keep like slow down the pendulum because it swings so far from one side to the other. Like, how can we come into a slower swing so that the balance is easier to achieve in every moment, because we're never just in balance and then we're good. We're like constantly striving for that balance. So how can we like slow down our swing on the pendulum?
Yes. And you know what I reckon it is? The key to that is what we were speaking before we came on, is like this sense of like play and like softness in the healing experience, and this sense of like imagination and like creativity, and like creativity not in just the sense of like the feminine, but just in the sense of like, joy within the process.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's been a really strong collective theme lately as well. Every essence consultation or flower reading that I've been doing lately, the fairies are like, and don't forget to tell them that this isn't meant to be hard.
Yes.
We're not going into the depths right now. We're just let it be. And the truth is, like, our bodies, our fields, our energy, they're designed to go back into balance. There's not so much efforting required, and same is true of the earth. She's designed to go back into balance, one way or another, and so, yeah, it's just like, let it happen. I mean, that's the magic of flower essences. They're so subtle. They can be working behind the scenes, and you don't have to be like trying to control the process so much, or nitpicking yourself so much, or,
yes,
trying so hard to heal, because we're actually getting in our own way.
Yes. I was literally thinking about this morning, and this whole kind of idea of control and how much we get in our own way. And yeah, just going back to the joy thing, it's like, I think that's something that like I've really consciously, because it is me, I've really consciously woven that thread of joy through everything that I do, even when it is kind of, the hards. and like the most challenging. It's like always finding that joy. And I think that's something that I really consciously try to like gift to my clients as well, within just my own energy as well, because we do get so serious about everything. And I think a lot of people are just so serious at the moment, and they do require to like allow themselves to soften into that joy for things to flow, because, you know, this seriousness is a form of control. You know, it's like making sure things aren't falling apart, and making sure like holding on so tightly to the experience, and like holding yourself so rigid that nothing can actually flow from there. You know, you're your own worst enemy when you're in that. So it's like bringing back that sense of like, we are just all children, basically. You know, we are all children, just like thinking we're doing all these, you know, right things on this like beautiful planet Earth. And it's like, what's so serious about it?
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't like the whole journey of healing anyways, just like, isn't the point of it all so we can experience the joy and the magic and the wonder? Like, isn't that why we're doing this? So what if we can find it right now? You know, there's so much to expanding our capacity to hold that, because the truth is that it actually is pretty scary when we feel those things, when our nervous system isn't used to it, you know?
Yeah.
It's actually like, ooh, when's the other shoe gonna drop?
Yes, absolutely. But it all comes back down to, I guess, these kind of wounds that we have within our heart and within our womb, of like, you know, something's going to go wrong. You know, the rug's going to be pulled out from underneath us, and it's like the more we like dip our toes in the water of like, can I find the joy? Can I find the play? Like, can I find a softening in this? The more we just like start to like dip our toes in, like the less like we realize that those things, the rug getting pulled out from underneath us doesn't actually mean anything. Like, we can start again in any moment, and we can choose in any moment where we want to come from, what space we want to be in. So it's like, yeah. I don't know if it's like just being a intrinsically a joyous person, if that just is like so much easier for myself. And so maybe it's like, you know, a lot harder for someone who hasn't sort of sat in that space quite as much. So I know that it may be like almost triggering for me to say that. But yeah.
Well, I think it for some people, it takes like expanding your nervous system to be able to get there. And then also expanding your trust in yourself.
Yeah.
I think if we have had a history of, you know, letting ourselves down, or even carrying shame, which like so many of us carry. I mean, probably everyone, right, carries some form of shame. Expanding our trust in ourselves, or proving to ourselves that we got ourselves. If that were to happen, then we can let go of the waiting for it to happen, because we know that if it were to happen, we're going to be okay. And I feel like the flowers are so incredible for that, because again, like they can just work behind the scenes on these layers that, because, you know, there's only so many ways to like consciously reprogram that kind of stuff. And the flowers help us come in on this deeper level and just do the little work behind the scenes to reset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even think like even what you're sort of bringing up there, like the shame piece and like learning to trust ourselves, really is that creating that relationship between the masculine and the feminine, right? Because it's like the trust is the feminine, and it's like, we have to trust that like our heart is able to give us the love we need to get us through anything, right? So it is like this integration of them both, and like how that is an undercurrent in this whole process. Yeah.
And trusting the like strength of our own container to be able to hold ourselves. I love this. I love this image of the masculine being so related to the heart, because I really associate like boundaries and protection with the masculine. And there's, I when I think about it, boundaries and protection reside in the heart space.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just writing a little message from Pink Yarrow earlier today about, there's beauty in the boundaries. Even the most wild and unruly gardens, tend to create some sort of perimeter. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that the seeds aren't going to eventually be spread. But, while we're bearing the fruit and our flowers are being pollinated and we're, doing these things, we need to keep that energy, and then we'll spread the excess seeds so that they can go where they need to go when we have extra to give.
Yes. Yes, I love that. A quick note, if you are a creative, an entrepreneur, or someone with a deep passion or vision that you would like to expand into, if you know your potential and are desiring to transmute your fears into fuel for fulfilling it, if you want to learn more about yourself so that your relationships can feel expansive and easeful, and if this episode is stirring something within you, I want to share with you that I offer one-to-one mentoring packages where we will explore flower essences and using them to harness and harmonize your vision and creativity. Drawing upon all I have navigated and learned from working in the creative industries for a decade to creating deep relationships with the flowers, alchemizing my own fears, blind spots, and roadblocks, I have curated these 3-month packages to offer you deep healing, growth, and tangible resources to tap into your personal and creative evolution. Again, if this is stirring something within you that is calling to be tapped into, you can book a connection call or sign up for the Beauty Way packages via the link in the show notes, or by heading to hekahealing.com.au/thebeautyway. I look forward to sharing the flower medicine with you.
I do feel like this feels really connected to another collective theme that's been coming up for me, if you're open to it.
Go for it.
So I've really been witnessing a lot of people and on a broader scale as well, being put in this place where they need to be an advocate for the voiceless, or for those who, just need someone to help speak for them. And that feels like this really beautiful exemplar of this like heart protection as well. And the protection of both of these forces within us. If you think about them as the mother and the father, that protection of the child within us. And I mean, I've been witnessing this in all aspects, like for those who are going through medical distress, for the elderly, for children, for plants, for the waters. And so I'm curious if you've happened to notice this need for advocacy in your life at all.
It's interesting. I haven't found that present out sort of like in those specific areas or like in those specific things. But I guess like something that's been on my mind is in general how flower essences give a voice to the voiceless, in the sense of like there's so many people, and this may be going off in like a different tangent, but there's so many people I see that like are so stuck in their lives, and like in the same sense that maybe, people with illness or the elderly or, all of those realms may be, these people are like moving through their lives very like blindly. And it's almost like you can see their like souls like calling out for like help. And I feel like the flowers themselves are almost like just wanting to be like spread, because they can do that. They can give that voice to the souls that are voiceless, right? Because they're kind of like stuck in this churning wheel of life and like can't quite like find that light at you know, to crawl their way out of that. And I know that's going off on a very different tangent, but like that's kind of like how I'm seeing that present in my own experience.
Wow, yeah, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. I mean, and two, being a flower essence practitioner, like it feels like this really big responsibility to share the messages that come through. And, you know, it's just this crazy experience of trying to just be a vessel and share what feels like it's moving through. But yeah, it's like, it's kind of this reciprocal game there, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'll just say one more thing and then we'll go back to kind of where you were heading with that. But it's like I'm feeling really called more so to work with and like it's just come up really obviously to me that like 90% of my clients are like creatives. And I wasn't aware of it until just recently. And then I was like, oh. But like it's really like coming up for me that like, yeah, like the people that I'm meant to work with are like these creatives. And I realize this now because it's like those people are the ones that are going to like reach the I guess the people who are blind, the people who are stuck through what it is that they create, right? They have this capacity to reach so many more people. And the flowers work in those like, you know, little ways of like moving through their creativity to touch another person and have that, you know, effect on them. So it's like, I can see now that like working with these people is going to expand this energy and expand the potential of the flowers to reach that many more people, to wake them up, right? To really draw out and show them like there is actually a way out of this, you know, and give them that voice. Yeah.
So beautiful.
But yeah, share a little bit more about your own sort of what's coming up for you in that realm and how it is that you feel called to, I guess, to offer that and to kind of weave what you have to offer through those realms.
Well, I mean, just a quick reflection on what you said. I think it makes so much sense to me because artists are the ones who have found a way to communicate in forms beyond language, most of them at least.
Yes.
You know, maybe it's a little different for writing and stuff like that. But I mean, even poets, think about poets. They're using language and words, but they're evoking a feeling. And, you know, painters, sculptors, all of this, they're evoking a feeling. And so, I mean, really, they're portraying a vibration, right? And so, of course, they're carrying through the vibration of the flowers that they're working with in their work, and maybe even sending little, you know, enchantments through the flowers off to their viewers.
Yes. Yes.
I love the magic working in that.
So beautiful. And it's like such a beautiful like vision in my mind as well. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And it just, it's this way of accessing this place beyond words that I feel myself always, you know, the realm that both of us probably exist a lot in. And I always feel myself struggling with the fact that it's so hard to pin these things down into words. And art is this way to move beyond that and, you know, speak a language that we can all understand, no matter what language we actually speak.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's what the flowers do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I get to that place a lot of like getting to a point where you don't have the words to convey like the message. And it's like coming back to this remembering of like the energy conveys the message. But I think going back again, it's like I actually think that's the joy. That's what the point of joy is, right? It's like the joy is conveying this message that like, you know, you can experience like this level of like, it's such like an open and sort of like giving expression that it's like really offering that to others. Like you can have that too. Yeah.
Yeah, because even to use language, to put things into language, you have to box it in one way or another, right? Like you have to mold it or control it a little bit to be able to put it into these words that we've decided mean these things or whatever, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But for me, I'm seeing this, you know, even in the wider world, even in social groups that have been like previously silenced, or you know, groups of endangered animals that have been, you know, they don't have language to communicate what they need, you know. Even the fact that we're now beginning to try and decipher whale sounds and dolphin sounds, and I'm seeing this in friends who are saying that they're finally giving a voice to their inner child who always felt like she couldn't speak up for herself. Just think there's this like, there's something happening here with this theme. And, you know, it's not necessarily something I'm specifically working with. I'm just observing it. And I thought it was interesting. So I thought I would bring it up.
Absolutely. No, but I really do feel that. And I do feel like it's almost like you can feel like that energy building, like the momentum of it building. It's almost like there's going to be a very big sort of like shift soon. And like, I feel like those, you know, there will be that sense of like, really giving those groups a voice. And I'm just like, feeling into it. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like all of a sudden there's going to be like this shift and like this real kind of eruption of energy, and like almost like there's going to be like this collective breath of fresh air of like just this realization, I think, that like, oh, we have the power to like be what we want to be and do what we want to do. And like, we just can. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I don't know. That's just like, I'm lost for words of how to convey it.
No, I understand. And I feel like at the time we're recording this, we're in this really interesting, like pressure cooker astrology moment, and things feel very tense and like they're going to boil over at any moment. Yeah. But it feels like we're on the precipice of something. And just to take the whole thing full circle, I feel like that is part of the reason why Lady Slipper has been coming through for me, because it's time to set the plans in motion. It's time to give your purpose some drive. It's time to get your feet on the ground and, you know, spread what you know into the world so that people can use these tools to show up for themselves in the ways that they haven't been able to be before. And I think, you know, I really, really hope that this is like a beautiful, hopeful transition that we're going into. And even if that's the case, we're still going to need these tools, like we were talking about before, to be able to hold the joy and the happiness and the receiving of it all, you know?
So, okay. So then you've got your course coming, your new offering coming up to do with, you know, rewriting your origin story, and then you're sort of like integrating these kind of themes as well within you of sort of like that masculine and feminine. So like, where to from here? What do you want to move into moving forward, if you want to share?
That's a great question. I think there's something really powerful about we've seen all of these very masculine myths, masculine hero stories, and then we've seen people try and rewrite them. And that's been beautiful, this heroine's journey. And I'm curious about what this new next step looks like. I wonder if there's something there about the weaving together of stories in these different ways. And if we can find a new way that invites us all in, where we can all envision ourselves. I don't know. I'm curious. We'll see what happens.
Well, I've got shivers, so I love that. I'm like down for it. I'm ready to rewrite these stories together. Yeah, no, that's a beautiful image. And I think, like you said, it's that pendulum swing as well of like, we've been so far one way and now we've like tried to swing it completely the other way. And it's like, no, it's like, rebalancing and coming back to the center and really like, navigating it together. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so hard to say what comes next because I'm seeing so much shifting within myself that I would have never expected. And, so I'm just remaining open to the journey,
I feel you on that. It's like, I was thinking this as well this morning, working with the flowers. I got to a point not long ago where I was just like, I've kind of like navigated so much throughout working with them. I'm like, surely, like, what else is there to reveal? And it's just almost like it's accelerated. And it's almost like as soon as I like settle into like one moment of like, it all makes sense now. Again, it's like just like unfolds completely in a different way. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going along for the ride. But like, where do I end up, And it is having to have that trust and just like flow with it.
Yeah, just spiraling and spiraling and spiraling.
Literally. But yeah, so I also feel like that in my own consciousness and in my own sort of direction and whatever you want to call it, shifted and turned so much lately, even probably from our last conversation, isn't relevant to me anymore either. But like, I mean, it's probably so much still is, but it's like just so interesting to see how things can shift so rapidly for us and how our perceptions can shift so rapidly, which is what our last conversation kind of was all about. Not holding on to like those things for dear life, not having that control and not holding on so tightly that like we're not allowing ourselves to keeping on flowing with it. Yeah, it's an interesting time.
It's interesting that like this is what you're saying here because it feels really close to a message I channeled from Rose earlier.
Oh, really?
And let's see if I have it right here because I think this is so interesting. All of life is always shifting and changing, and so are we. We don't have to be just one thing. It's beautifully human to be paradoxical, nuanced, and enigmatic. You can be both soft and fiercely protective. Open yourself to the idea that all the parts of you are welcome in the temple of your heart. Be devoted to the multidimensionality of yourself.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Rose. Oh, but it really is. And it's like just kind of this understanding of like we can't attach to any one thing. We can't attach to any one thing. Like, we can give ourselves kind of like space to like, I don't know how to explain this, but space to like sit within a realm of something, but we can't attach to any one thing because the moment we do that, the moment we like stifle ourselves from where we're meant to go. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think this is why So maybe this answers a little bit of your question of what I feel like is next is I think this theme of embracing the nuance is something that I'll just be continually trying to understand and relate with, because I think the more we as a collective can embrace the nuance within ourselves, which I feel like is what you're talking about, like allowing ourselves to shift and change, allowing ourselves to be all of these different things at once. And if they follow, like we're not grasping any of them. So if they fall away, that's okay. Because then we can better allow that within each other. Mm. And there doesn't have to be so much of this trying to say, well, if you believe this thing, then you must be like this type of person, and I don't want to associate with you, or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And I think well, all the time, you know, the reason behind, you know, keeping ourselves attached to these stories is never for ourselves. It's always for others. You know, when we get stuck in that moment of like, oh, like, but I was this way. If it was just about us, we would be happy to let go of that and move through. But it's when we attach to the potential judgments and perceptions of others is when we kind of like grasp to those previously built identities or beliefs or whatever it is. And it's like bringing ourselves back into, we're only responsible for us and we're not responsible for anyone else. And that includes anyone else's judgments or perceptions of us. And like really like grounding in this knowing that all we have here right now is us. Because if we follow that, if we follow our internal guidance system, if we follow that, as you say, like allows others to do the same. So it is like we're there for others by being there for us. It's just always the attachment comes from outside of ourselves, you know?
And the more we follow that internal guidance system, the more we'll be in alignment with ourselves. Our lives will be in alignment with our heart, our belief system, our values, and we'll have an easier time being in our own energy. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we're only meant to be in our own energy, you know?
Yeah, and absolutely.
So, like when we're in alignment, it makes it so much easier to be in our own energy and not take on all of this other stuff. And it also makes it easier to attract the people who resonate with us and who are on a similar frequency to us and who are meant to stick around, you know?
100%. I'm really noticing lately, and I can notice it because this is what I guess myself went through, of like this whole, you know, when you grow up very sensitive, you tend to take on this role of like people pleasing and, you know, making sure everyone else is okay. And I'm like witnessing like how prevalent that is in the collective at the moment. That's something that I'm witnessing is like, and it's even for people that are so unconscious to it as well and wouldn't probably call themselves sensitive, but how much they're allowing the peace and the comfortability of others to determine what they're doing themselves. And I guess just like knowing my own experience from that is like really makes me like really want to help shift that for others, because I know like how sticky and how like challenging that can be. But I also know that means there's that many people, there's so many people out there with so much potential to move into really beautiful places. Because you form these things from this sensitivity and these gifts, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about how like even the least sensitive, most like pragmatic, practical, you know, men that I know, I'm just using men because they probably are the farthest from relating to highly sensitive, seem to have this like real existentialism and this issue where they feel like they're in a life that they actually don't want. And, it's like this cookie cutter life that they feel like they got slotted into. And when I think the root of that is a desire for belonging, doing what society tells you should do and what's the path for you. And just hoping that gets you this sense of belonging that you're truly seeking. And that's why this work feels so important, of rerouting ourselves into these, like, I don't like, for me, it's with these stories, right? But there's many ways to do this, but rerouting ourselves so that we actually feel like we belong somewhere. So yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of what I was seeing as you were talking. Like, I just saw this root of belonging for why we end up there in the first place.
And I think, especially for men, I think it comes back to this, the wound in the heart, because if they're not loved, they don't belong. But the thing is, they've closed themselves off to that love, for this fear of not belonging, right? For this fear of like being kind of like, unloved. And it's like, so they've forged these lives, to kind of compensate for like that, I guess, fear of not belonging, fear of being unloved. And there's that simple fix for it and it's simple but not easy of learning how to receive, because I think that would shift those stories completely.
Even just receiving the love and support to be able to like explore another path or find what it is that you truly value and, move that direction or towards what inspires you or whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Totally. This has been fun. This has been really fun. Is there anything else you want to explore before we jump off on this one?
Well, just one other thing I wanted to mention that came up while you were talking, because it just feels so synchronistic to the winding nature of this conversation, is I had Lady Slipper come up last week or something for a client. And it was about, ultimately it was about neutralizing or balancing the masculine and feminine within oneself, but it was about attracting the partner that's at the right frequency for them. And it's so interesting that we landed there in terms of like living a life that's more aligned with your purpose and your values. And when you're in alignment with yourself, you naturally attract the people that are meant to find you.
Yes.
And so Lady Slipper, y'all.
Yes, Lady Slipper.
You can work with her. You can work with her psychically if you don't have access to her in your area. And I'm curious if there's a comparable flower maybe that grows in Australia.
I'm trying to think of like a particular essence that I've worked with, because like obviously I'm having these same sort of themes kind of come up for me. But it's funny because I feel like it's almost like this journey of like all different essences that are like kind of like adding to the message and like bringing it like holistically through. So I can't I don't think I can like pick one that's kind of like really like bringing that through as a whole, which is interesting. But yeah, I love it so much. This has been really fun. Again, I'm sure we'll just like keep on doing this.
Always down.
Always down. So do you want to share a little bit about the upcoming course you have then for anyone who may be interested?
So I have this 3-day journey coming up on September 9th through the 11th. It's online and it's called Reclaiming the Garden, Rerouting the Goddess into Eden. And in this journey, we're going to explore the story of the Garden in Eden and how it actually cuts us off from our roots and our branches, how it connects to the world tree, which is a much more ancient story that actually connects us all. It's present in the mythology of cultures all over the globe. And we're going to look at all the different goddess related symbolism that is baked into this story and have a ceremony to replant ourselves in the garden of life and reclaim our rightful place after we overcome some of the shame stories that are written into this origin story. So it should be a transformative experience. And it'll come with a flower essence, which is lady slipper, of course, trillium, and bloodroot.
Amazing. So if anyone has been intrigued by our conversation and the lady slipper, I'm sure that it will be an amazing experience to use that alongside this course of yours. It sounds so good, so good. So I will link it in the show notes as well for anyone who would like to join in on that with Sam. And yeah, any final notes before we jump off today?
Don't forget to incorporate joy in your healing.
Yes, absolutely. Joy, joy, joy. Any way you can. And, it's so funny because it's like when we have joy, like, fear can't exist in that moment either. In those moments where we're sitting in pure joy, I don't feel like fear can exist in that. So I think that joy is such an underrated sort of experience. So, yeah.
It's where the magic lies.
That is it. Yeah. Thank you so much again for coming on for a second time. It's been lovely, and I'm glad we just went with the flow and took that to where it was supposed to go. And yeah, I hope you have a beautiful day, everyone, and enjoy this conversation. If you did, let us know your thoughts in the comments. I think there's like a review section, or on social media. And we will see you all soon.